Friday. Yay, Friday. Um, so excited. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We're excited to be able to offer so many wonderful professional developments to you all. So good afternoon. I'm Sharon Veatch. I'm the Litchfield County Vice President for the Connecticut School Counselor Association, and I'm a school counselor, a high school counselor at Housatonic Valley Regional High School in the way northwest corner that's going to get measurable snow tonight. I'm pleased to host this panel today to answer, and in some cases not answer, because we don't have the information yet, questions related to how the pandemic is impacting our students and families in the area of college admissions and their access to higher education. I want to thank the wonderful admissions professionals who are introduced to you in just a moment, and thank them for their willingness to be a part of this panel. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you today. A few housekeeping notes. If you are not already a member of the Connecticut School Counselor Association, please we become a member. We need a voice. It's very important now more than ever that we have a place to gather, advocate, and plan for our profession. Please remain muted during the duration of this presentation. Each panelist will begin by doing a brief overview of how things have been impacted for their specific institutions, and then we'll open it up to questions. So please type your questions after we get through introductions directly into the chat box, and I will do my best to not miss any and read them to the panelists to be addressed if they can. And then we also invite you to join us for the multiple sessions that the Connecticut School Counselor Association is offering next week. But most especially our advocacy session on Tuesday at 3 p.m. titled How to Keep Your School Counselor Positions for the Next School Year in a Tight Budget Time. And I think this is, as I'm hearing, and in my own school, we have someone retiring and they're not going to replace that position. So this is a really important topic. So we'd like to hear from as many of you as we can. And that is Tuesday at 3 p.m. So go and sign up. So enough from me, and for what you're really here for, please join me in welcoming our panel members today. We have Jim Fowler, who is the Vice President for Enrollment Management from Salve, Regina University. Jim, if you could wave, yeah. We have Mario Silva-Rosa, Director of Undergraduate Admissions from Bentley University. Hi, Mario, thanks for being here. We have Debra Johns, the Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions for Yale University. Thank you, Deb, for being here. Tyler Tucky, the Regional Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions. Phew, that's a long title, Tyler. From North Carolina State University. So hi, Tyler. And Jarrett Saunders, the Senior Assistant Director of Undergraduate Admissions at UMassAmherst. So we're going to, so hi, everybody. Thank you, panel. And we're going to start with Jim, who's going to start us off with a little bit of an update from Salve.
Sure, thanks Sharon, and welcome everyone. So good to be virtually back in my native Connecticut. Not sure if anybody's here from Xavier High School, but go Falcons. And hope everyone is doing well in these uncertain and trying times. I think we have done the best we can. All of us in our roles at our respective institutions to respond to what really has been quite an upheaval for much of what we do and how we do things, and really tested our ability to be nimble and to be creative. And I think that everyone is doing very well in spite of a lot of challenges that were very much unanticipated. Who would have thought a year ago we'd be sitting here coming at the end of the school year and wondering if we will ever see our students in person again. But I think at Salve, you know, where we are right now is we were one of the first institutions to move our enrollment deposit deadline to June 1st. So we are still very much in the process of working with high school seniors on their decision making, working with parents, helping them understand what the realities are on the ground, addressing issues of family finances, particularly as unemployment is rising, and doing our best to be responsive to families in that regard. We have, in the last week, as an institution, officially stated that we intend to open in the fall, though I think like all institutions, there is even some uncertainty in that. It's nice for all of us to say, yes, we intend to open, but of course that is really going to be contingent on what happens with the track of the virus over the summer and what state and federal governments say about our ability to come together as communities in September. I think at Salve, we are happy that we're a smaller community, which allows us a little bit more space for social distancing and a smaller student population to manage. But anytime you're putting students in a residence situation, you are bringing a diverse group of students from many different locations to a new place in relatively tight quarters. And so a lot of what we're doing right now is contingency planning, trying to figure out health and safety guidelines and protocols to make sure that particularly our residence hall spaces are going to be safe, talking about what might happen were students to come down with the virus and what that would do for quarantining students, what that would mean for class attendance, and whether or not students would still be able to attend classes virtually, even if they're on campus in a more traditional setting. So there's a lot, I think all campuses, but certainly Salve is in the middle right now of a lot of contingency planning. I think what's been a real blessing for us is being Rhode Island is a small state. There's been a lot of collaboration between all the institutions in Rhode Island. There's actually a working group of colleges and universities in Rhode Island that is meeting with state officials weekly to talk about what guidelines and what guide rails need to be in place for everybody to open up in the fall. And I think that's given us a sense of optimism that we can accomplish that because there is that collaborative spirit and a commitment on the part of our governor to really ramp up testing significantly. Tomorrow is our first day of phase 1 reopening here in Rhode Island. It'll be interesting to see. My wife and I were joking today. Tomorrow is the last day in the world that we're going outside because we're pretty sure that there's going to be some people with cabin fever that are acting maybe not in a reasonable way now that there's an official reopening. But I think all institutions are being very careful to monitor how they're going to respond to this epidemic and to really do everything possible to ensure that we can open in the fall. Perhaps some people read Christina Paxton's, President of Brown's editorial in the New York Times last week that really, I think, really solidified the idea that institutions not only want very much to open in the fall, but in many cases need to.
Couldn't find my unmute button. Sorry, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Do you want to continue seeing where you are, Mario?
Sure. Good afternoon. I hope that all of you in the audience are keeping safe and staying safe. I come to you virtually from home, but I do certainly have a background of the institution. We are, as Jim alluded to, I think that we are paying close attention to the details, not only within our institution, but at the same time, state and federal guidelines, just to make sure that whatever decision is made, it's done in a comprehensive manner, and that is going to keep in mind all the details that will entail trying to have an orderly opening of the institution to that sense. We pivoted fairly quickly at Bentley as an institution that has paid a close attention to technology for many, many years. We pivoted to a platform that allowed us to continue in the spring with online classes like most and all the other institutions. But at the same time, I think that even though we are anticipating offering on-campus instruction this fall, we are also paying close attention, and we are planning to formally provide an announcement with our intentions at some point in June. So certainly that will probably give us an opportunity to get a better sense as to what the state and federal guidelines will be for higher education as a whole. But we feel confident that if necessary, Bentley, it's prepared to continue remotely. And we have done, like I mentioned, this online learning and kind of like a virtual campus experience this spring, where students took classes, but also continue on with their involvement in most of the clubs and organizations. So I think that we wanted to, especially for the seniors, to make sure that they closed out the year in a way that they felt really good about their overall experience at Bentley. We are also prepared if need be, so we are retrofitting just about every single classroom. We had a good number of classrooms that were utilized even at the graduate level, where students were able to virtually be in class. And we're rolling out all that technology this summer to the undergraduate house. So we're really excited about that because it's going to allow us to have plenty of flexibility. And that's one of the words, I think that some of the key words that I will probably share with you is flexibility, be able to adjust, and opportunities. So I think that we tried to create some sort of space where the students really benefited greatly from the opportunities that we had in a different format. But at the same time, I think that it lends itself for some great opportunities for us to be creative moving forward. So this summer, like I said, we are upgrading all of the technology in just about more than 50 classrooms across campus. And I think that it's going to allow us to feel confident that whatever comes our way or doesn't come our way, we should be able to be up and running for that experience for the students. It will certainly be different, but I think that on feeling confident about the content that we have in place and how we can deliver that content, we don't have any issues as I sit here with all of you. Aside from that, I think that it has been really interesting to convert all of our visiting experience to a true virtual experience. And I think that we have gotten some positive reviews about the experience that the students are gaining from that engagement. But we know that the current state may not be sustainable. So I think that we're really going to continue to ramp things up to offer that as an option. Again, just like we are converting our classrooms, we feel that moving forward, most of the institutions, if not all, will trying to find a hybrid opportunity for students to still show that interest, still engage with us, and benefit from those options to connect with us. So I think that the students currently are finding ways to really find some of the answers to the key questions. Parents have great access and even more access now than before. And we just want to make sure that we have enough resources to deploy for the different constituencies that may be inquiring about information related to our institution. So I think that this is everything that I've just told you. I think that It's relevant to a lot of institutions, and institutions will continue to adapt and find ways to meet the students where they are.
Great, thanks, Mario. And as the mother of a junior, I thank you all for trying to figure out how to do the college visits as a mother of a very disappointed junior. So I thank you all. I forgot I think Deb, you're up next.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. And hi, everybody. Glad to see we have such a great group of people here this afternoon. You know, I think from our perspective, there are a couple things to keep in mind. You know, being in the state of Connecticut, we are following the lead of our governor and what the governor is providing us in terms of what we can do and how we can open up and what we should focus on first. You know, the head of Yale Health and the dean of our medical school, they're both part of task force that are associated with the governor, and I think that's been helpful because we have received an awful lot of information in terms of how we proceed. And as you've read and you probably have seen a lot of news about various constituencies within the university that are working on, you know, the virus and working on lots of different things associated with vaccines. And you probably have heard from the head of Yale Health when they have the conferences with the governor and such. So I feel like we've been really well communicated with as a community from our President Salve. We just had a town meeting this past Friday, and I think we had several hundred people of the community, which is everybody. You know, that includes the hospitals, that includes the university, that includes the undergraduate population. And, you know, the president spoke, the dean of the medical college spoke, our provost spoke, our dean of students, equivalent position, spoke about all the things that Yale has put into place. And again, it's evolving. You know, there's as Mario and Jim have said, everything is, we've got to actually plan for a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, you know, because all of these scenarios as the summer evolves may come to pass. And so, yes, we're retrofitting our classrooms so that we can teach both virtually and in person at the same time. Yes, we have learned so much from turning around being an in-place, real-time campus. And literally, it feels like everybody says 24 hours, but our students were on break. So we actually had maybe a week to turn from being an on-campus facility to being a virtual facility. And, you know, frankly, some professors did a great job, and some professors are evolving in terms of their ability to connect well with their students. We've done asynchronous teaching and we've done online teaching in terms of what we've been able to provide students. And I think that we've done an excellent job of that, provided the time frame that we were given to make this happen for our students. You know, but everybody's feeling a sense of loss, or seniors are not graduating in the way that they had imagined, and I bet your high school students are feeling the same way. I see on the evening news here in the state of Connecticut all the cool ways that communities are kind of bringing their students together, and I think that's lovely, but you know, it doesn't replace the cap and gown ceremony, and I get that, and we feel that so much ourselves as well. I think that, you know, it's so interesting. The contingency plans are so fascinating because it's not going to be the same, right? One of the contingency plans has our students coming back maybe a month earlier, and maybe going full-time without a break until November, and then going home at Thanksgiving and not coming back and doing their finals, you know, online or virtually, however you want to say that. And so that's one of the contingency plans. One is, of course, another plan is, how do we deal with being in the city of New Haven. You know, some of us are located in more populous areas, and we have to work with our cities as well. And that's really affected our particular part of the business because we're so outward facing as a university. You know, how do you welcome guests when you have no idea where these guests are coming from? And so, you know, we're having conversations about the virtual piece of learning about Yale, and you know, we offer virtual sessions 4 times a week now, and I thought, oh boy, I wonder how these will go. And surprisingly, you know, they've been going really well. We have about 300 people on each one, and you know, they're and the cool thing is the unintended consequence, I guess, of this has been, I am the one who's sort of leading that because I'm the lead of hospitality, is we're reaching far reaches around the world, right? We've got one of our sessions, we had 22 countries represented in addition to the United States. And I think that's kind of a cool outcome. I don't think I would see that if they were in a building in New Haven during the summer. So, you know, if we're able to do some better outreach that way, maybe virtual will be something that will continue in some capacity. In terms of what we will do going forward, you know, into 2021, and with this particular class, we refer to this class as the class of 2024, so when they will graduate. You know, what we're seeing from our campus with this particular class is we had a May 1st deadline. We are doing a little tiny bit of maybe going for about 40 students off of our wait list. We have about 80 students right now that have asked to postpone, but we are pretty sure come June or July, because by the end of June is when our president said he will have a plan out there. And the goal is to hopefully be open, but never at the expense of the safety of our students, staff, and faculty. That is the guiding principle of all of our decisions at Yale. And so, you know, let's say he says we're more virtual than not come August or September, then we may see more students ask for postponement in the coming year. And that's a bridge, you know, as our dean has said, we're taking that on a case-by-case basis. And we'll probably keep an active wait list much longer than we have over the summer, because we will want to make our class. We've reduced the class size a smidgen. That's a moving target, so I'm a little uncomfortable saying it's now at this particular point, just because, again, everything's evolving, and there may be a point where that number reduces even more because we want to have all singles rather than doubles, and we want to have a smaller imprint in each of the residential colleges, because that's the hardest part of this, are kids in residence. And that's the hardest part of, I think, the decisions that are being made. And also, if kids get ill with COVID, how does a university respond? So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Deb. Tyler, you want to take it for North Carolina State?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for logging in this afternoon. Wanted to say thank you, and it's nice to see everyone virtually. So you might be wondering what someone from North Carolina doing here. I am originally based in Providence, Rhode Island, so not too far away from Jim, and working with all of your students coming from Connecticut. So thanks, Sharon, for the invitation. And I echo everything that people have said before me. So I think that some of the biggest takeaways are the uncertainty. And the thing that really strikes home with me is that none of us have ever done admissions during a pandemic. None of us have ever done high school counseling during a pandemic. None of us have done high school learning during a pandemic. All of this is new to everyone. And I think that as educators, newness is always viewed as this really exciting thing, but that's always when you can get the answer. And right now, those answers are not obtainable. And I think that that's where I think professionals are frustrated with each other. I think that's where we're frustrated at the government sometimes, and that we're seeing these frustrations and that no one really has these answers yet. So we appreciate your patience and knowing that you're encouraging your students and your families to reach out to us. And I think now more than ever is the best time to be in touch with the Office of Admission. We're going to disseminate the information as soon as we know it. So none of us are going to keep secrets. None of us are going to hide things from you. We're all here, and if we don't have an answer, it's because we're not sure of it yet. But as soon as we know it, we'll be the first ones who communicate that with you and your families. And know that we're going to always act in the best interest of you and your students. Like, our goal here is to promote their safety and their well-being. And yes, that's through our viewpoint as education, but how does that physical and physical well-being look on our campuses? And we're still trying to figure that out. Deb has contingencies A through D. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to double digits and double letters pretty soon, because this just changes so regularly. So I think that from our standpoint, we are equally working with the state of North Carolina. The University of North Carolina system has an interim president who we're really happy has an MD after his name. So being able to advocate for the entire system, but then also have that knowledge base has been a great asset to us. And like I said, as soon as we get those answers, we'll communicate them. So we've communicated and deposit extension to May 15th for our students. Any student who's looking to defer their enrollment, we understand that there may be some of those conversations right now, but there's going to be more of those after an official announcement is made, whatever the direction for fall is going to look like. Again, communicate that with us. We're going to want to know that as soon as you know. We are looking at what does the fall look like. Our hope, and I think this is true for all of us in higher education, is like normally the summer is the gloomiest time period for us because there's no students on campus. And right now there's not only no students on campus, but most of us are working from our homes. And so our true hope and our happiness comes from seeing our students on campus. So we're hoping to return in person in the fall in whatever capacity that looks like. I think for the juniors, there's a lot of concern, and thankfully for us, demonstrated interest has never been a factor in our review process. So our juniors don't need to feel worried about that. But we are very fortunate that we rolled out a virtual campus tour at the end of April, end of February. So we got that launched really early in the process, and it's been a great asset to us and being able to showcase our campus to students who may not have that ability to visit currently. So know that there's a lot of ways to interact with us. Know that we are here to support our students and families, that our sadness is their sadness. We share the same emotion. So as they're going through this different wave, we are as well. So again, I think I echo everything that others have said, and just would really encourage you to be in touch with those admission offices who you are the most closely connected to, especially for that class of 2024.
Great, thanks, Tyler. Last but certainly not least, Jarrett Saunders from UMassAmherst.
All right, hi everybody. It's great to see you all virtually. Thank you, Sharon, for inviting me. It's I was kind of bummed out to not be able to travel this spring and see everybody, but it's nice to have this opportunity at least. And the beauty of being last is that everyone before me sort of did all the heavy lifting, because really we're all saying a similar thing. My favorite answer in higher education is it depends, and that's all I've been able to use for the past couple months. So that's really where everything is right now. We're if I'm watching TV and if I hear the phrase "in these uncertain times" one more time, I'm going to scream. But they are uncertain. That's really where we are right now. Things have been changing on a dime here. It seems like every time we think we know, okay, this is probably what's going to happen. It's like, oh well, no, that's going to change now. So we're really just trying to keep up with everything. As Tyler was saying, when we know, you will know. So we've been updating our website. The chancellor has been in touch with us and with the public, and making sure that that the information that we do have is being put out there in a timely fashion. So in terms of what we're doing for the fall, decision hasn't been made yet in terms of whether we're going to be virtual or in person. just like everybody else. But we do know that we will have a virtual option. So that will be there. Whether or not we have students back on campus, we will at least have a virtual option, even if we do open the campus back up. So we know that's there. In terms of what we did in admissions, as Tyler was saying, we actually were working on, like, literally the week before we got kicked out of our offices. We had just recorded our newest information session. So we had that up on the website. We got our virtual tour and all that. We just revamped that in the winter. So we were kind of getting prepared for this in some ways already, like a lot of places. So we were in pretty good shape going into it. We did we came up with since we weren't doing our open houses, our yield events, we came up with some virtual programs for the admitted students. We're now pivoting to the juniors and prospective students, and we're working on our new programs for them, and also virtual high school visits. Because we know on your side of things, you're having the same conversations, just with different different constituents. Whether you guys are going to be open again, or if you're going to have colleges visiting and all those kinds of things. So we're prepared either way. We're sort of preparing ourselves to. It'd be nice to say, okay, we're going to go back to normal, quote unquote, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But we're prepared to open the university. We're prepared to recruit students, however that happens to be, whether it's in person or virtually. We're getting ready for both scenarios. And there is, while there is, this pandemic is, there's sort of the, obviously the dark cloud of, just sort of the sort of death and destruction that it's caused. But at the same time, we have to look forward, and we have to go on with our lives and what we do. And there are some real opportunities here to learn new skills, to learn new ways to communicate with each other, and to reach out further. I think Deb was saying, to be able to hit some of those places that and talk to some of those people that we may not have been able to touch as well as we would before, where we can't travel everywhere. So there is definitely some opportunity here as well, for both from our end, and I think from the students as well, as everybody is going to be revamping their programs, their online and virtual programs. It's just going to be that much more accessible to students who may not have had access to to visiting campuses and things like that in the first place, regardless of the pandemic. So while there is the sort of the dark cloud of this pandemic, there's some silver linings as well that we can sort of hold on to and try to be positive as we make our way forward. So glad to be here, and I'll send it back to you, Sharon.
Again, unmute button, couldn't find it. Cursor in different part
I can
of the
never
screen.
find it.
I'm so sorry. So a couple of the questions that we've got from the chat have to do specifically with what Deb touched on a little bit for Yale with deferrals. And so what is your current policy, and has that been adjusted at all regarding deferrals for that class of 2024 for our current seniors? So I'll just let anyone that I see. Jim is unmuted first, so Jim gets to go first.
I think we intend to be as flexible as we can with deferrals. Now, right now, we haven't seen a huge rush of students asking for that, and so we're cautiously optimistic that students want to get out of their houses and be on campus in the fall, because frankly, given the current state of the economy, unemployment, I have to be asking, if I was the parent of a high school or college age student, what would my student be doing if they deferred? Are they just going to be hanging around playing Xbox all day, which my 12-year-old seems to think is what this whole time period is about. But I think our intention is to be able to be flexible, to say if you need to defer. I think we would encourage students to consider deferring to spring first over deferring for a full year, because if there is a rush of deferrals, and what my big concern is let's say 10 to 15% of students say, I'm going to defer for a full year. There's a downstream impact on current high school juniors that we also have to be sensitive to, because we don't want the current junior class to be shut out of opportunities because places are already full before they even get to consider the college search process. So it's, Jarrett used the best phrase, it depends. If we continue, if we have a larger number of deferrals than usual, but still manageable, we will honor those deferrals. But if we start seeing a cavalcade of deferrals coming in, then I think we probably will have to reassess our policies.
Does anybody else on the panel have something a little different, or are you all pretty similar? You can give me a thumbs up if it's just similar. Go ahead, Tyler, and then Jarrett.
The only I echo what Jim said, and the only addition is, again, flexibility is what we're looking at, but we're also trying to act in student best interest. So while we may have had policies preventing or capping the number of credits that students can take during an official deferral, we're examining that policy currently and making sure that if we make any updates to that, it's in a student's best interest. So we understand if you're deferring and you would like to stay closer to home for that fall semester and you would like to take a class or two, how can we make sure that that is accommodated at our institution?
And not play Xbox the whole time like Jim said.
Yeah, I have a 17-year-old that's playing. Well, his preference is PS4, but times like this actually it comes in handy. It's like, yeah, just go play, whatever you're doing. Let me do my Zoom meeting. But yeah, I think our policy, our deferral policy is. Has changed a little bit over the past year in that we're not doing as many defers as we have in the past, and we're and what we've been saying is that if you have extenuating circumstances, we'll consider your deferral. So people basically apply to defer, and we let them know if we can accept their deferral. So what we're looking at now with what's going on. Certainly, if the situation has the COVID situation has caused major upheaval in a family, and that creates their extenuating circumstances, then we'll certainly consider it. We're trying not to just say that we're trying to be flexible, but not just sort of come out and say, yeah, we're being flexible with everyone, because like Jim was saying, that can really be sort of damaging to to a college in a lot of different ways. Whether it's a junior class that's incoming, whether it's financially, all those kinds of things have to be sort of taken into consideration. And so we're not saying that like we're trying to let people know that we have the virtual option early, so that we didn't want people to make a decision on depositing and then find out that we could do the virtual learning and then say, well, I don't want to come then, and I want to defer. We don't want everyone to do that, so we're trying to kind of manage that. So it's kind of like the same thing that everyone else is doing, but we have been a little bit tighter with the deferrals, even just over the past year. But particularly now, we really have to examine each of them separately.
Well, on behalf of school counselors everywhere, thank you for that candor.
So to follow that, and I echo the sentiment that has been shared, we at Bentley decided to come out and be a little bit bold in trying to provide true flexibility for the incoming class. So what we came up with was an opportunity for students to take us up on an offer to do what we call a trimester. So it will be like a tri-semester for the incoming year. So what that has allowed students and families to realize is that they truly have some flexibility within the academic calendar, where they can actually take courses in the fall or the spring, fall and spring, or spring and summer. So we have 3 full semesters that have been set up, one in the fall, one in the spring, and one in the summer, for families to feel comfortable about making that decision as to how they would like to strategize and still be on track for graduation. So that has been an idea that was implemented and well received, and we haven't really seen a propensity to defer at this point. It's pretty comparable to years past, maybe 3, 5 students the most. So certainly that has been an opportunity to be flexible and to try to meet them. And again, for us is to try to meet the students where they are, and in this particular case, the students and families to where they are. So that's an option that was created, and it has certainly been well received.
All right, next question, which you covered a little bit of in the gap year, deferral year answer. But so John, I hope you don't mind if I combined your 2 questions a little bit here. John's first question was, since people are going to make enrollment decisions on assumption of full reopening, what are the financial responses, in parentheses refunds, and admissions responses, parentheses gap year, if it doesn't happen? So I think we've addressed part of that already. And then he's had a little bit of a follow-up question that sort of is along those lines. Do you anticipate, and I think Mario, you talked a little bit about how your school is doing this, developing multiple pricing models like live, online, hybrid for the education that you provide in the future? So I think we've covered the deferral piece of that, but the refund or hybrid or multiple pricing type of thing, if you could maybe address that. I think Mario, you did a good job of that in your answer.
So, I can answer for Yale in terms of we did provide a refund for room and board in the range of $20 million that was not budgeted for. And our president shared with us that the cost of the COVID crisis has cost the university $200 million to date. So, when hearing those, it just sort of blew my mind. I was like, whoa, this is expensive. Wow, that's big. And that when he also mentioned there has been, national news and regional news. Well, Yale can just go to its robust endowment to pay for things. And what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is most of that money is very much tied to very specific projects with very specific stipulations that we're not able to use in any given fiscal year. And so, in terms of the financial cost to each of our universities, it's a tremendous burden right now in this particular fiscal year, but it's something that we will be working with for the next 1 to 5 years to get ourselves back to where we were before. And I think that is, if we get to that point where we were before, because I think that's one thing to keep in mind. Going forward, that's one of the committees that has been put together on our campus, is talking about what if certain students were to learn virtually, not be on campus. Is there a reason to have a different price point for the type of learning that they're receiving? Because it's the same professor, it's the same content, it's a different environment. And so those are sort of the conversations that we're having on our campus. But honestly, going forward, because we're so focused on hopefully getting a majority of our students back to campus, if not all of them that are enrolled for the fall, that we plan to, that's plan A, and that there wouldn't be a variance in price going forward. But again, it's an evolving question that hasn't been completely answered.
Yeah, I would echo what Deb said. I think the challenge for families is understanding that higher education finance is a highly complex animal that there's not a one-to-one correlation between, say, tuition and in-classroom delivery, or room and board and the cost of staying at an inn per night. And so when we think about where the cost savings is going to be, particularly for residential institutions, for families, if they are learning remotely, that cost savings is in the room and board dollars. Because when you think about where the dollars are going to run the university, if you want to think about it this way, if tuition is instructional dollars, room and board dollars aren't just covering the cost of the residence hall and meal plan. They're also contributing to a lot of the infrastructure that's necessary for a university to run. For example, information technology, which is necessary for us to do remote learning. And so when we provide the refund that comes with room and board, that means that dollars that are spent on instruction are also being repurposed to provide the information technology costs associated with remote learning. So I think it's a myth that online education is less expensive. It really isn't. You still have to have qualified faculty that you pay for. Higher education is a human resource heavy enterprise. And so what you're paying for in tuition, and I think for most institutions, what families are paying for tuition is not really covering the cost of education for a student. The cost of educating a student is more than what most families pay for tuition. And so that's the challenge for us as institutions. I think in an ideal world, do families want to hear, yes, the cost change will be different? Realistically, I don't know many institutions that will be able to say that if it's a remote learning environment, that they can have a completely different cost structure.
Okay, I'm going to shift gears a little. I hope that answered John's question for him. He can give me a thumbs up or not. Oh, thank you. John says yes. All right, so moving on. Samantha asks, I'm going to be working on a college search video presentation for sophomores and juniors. If you could give them one piece of advice regarding the college search process during this time, what would it be?
Happy to get us started on this one. And I would say that I think that now may be the best time ever to explore different colleges. You have the ability to look at really almost any college in the country and across the world at a timeline that's convenient for you. You do not necessarily need to travel there. So my biggest advice to students who are looking at their options right now is to explore all of these virtual options. We're all virtual heavy and have virtual fatigue ourselves, but we do it because we find a value in it for the prospective students. So use all of the virtual resources that we're able to provide and start to narrow down your list based off of where you get a sense maybe a good fit for you. And our hope is that you'll be able to see those schools that you intend to be a good fit for you in person at a later date and time. We'll be here when that day comes, but use the time wisely, because a lot of us have these resources right now for you. And we're hoping that you take full advantage of those.
Anybody else? Deb says that's probably the same thing she'd say.
I will probably add the fact that let's keep in mind that year after year, hundreds and thousands of international students may not have or may not be interested in visiting colleges, make decisions. And a lot of them make sound decisions to attend a variety of schools. So I think it's important for us and for you as you counsel and advise students to keep that in the back of your mind, that there are individuals out there that are making some decisions on a yearly basis based on a variety of factors that may not require for them to be in person on the campus. I think that being able to move forward and take full advantage of all those tools to really have a sound assessment as to what are the top schools and where would I want to end up at, it's going to be extremely important. I think that a lot of students, especially, have taken for granted the opportunity that they have to really do some significant research. And in this situation that we are in, I think it's important for you to really do that research and pay close attention to the details and try to get the best sense possible, because it's not only you, everyone, it's on the same boat. So it's not like an unfair advantage from one student to the next.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, to
Go ahead,
piggyback
Jarrett.
off of what Mario said, I mean, you know, it certainly levels the playing field to a certain degree, but also, like Mario said, like, pay attention to the details and don't let students fall back on rankings and what, different magazines say and all those kinds of things, like those easy things that you can just kind of fall back and say, oh yeah, those are the schools I'm going to look at because those are the ones that I've heard of, or those are the ones that always make the list for this, that, or the other. Unless you're talking about food, of course, because we're #1 for food. But other than that, the other ones just don't matter. But no, just kidding. But yeah, I mean, like, really, like to, do the homework. And I think one thing that we've made our students much more accessible, our tour guides, because they're hourly workers, they get paid, and they were not doing tours anymore, so they were desperate for anything to do with the office. So we have them answering emails. We have them available to prospective students and to admitted students. They were a major part, really, honestly, the biggest part of our virtual yield events, our virtual info sessions. It was mostly the students talking and answering questions. So I would think that a lot of universities are doing the same thing. So I would tell the upcoming students to seek them out as well and get their thoughts on what it's like to be there, even what it's like to be there right now. How did it go this spring with the virtual classes? How did that feel? How do you feel like the university treated you? All those kinds of things are good things for prospective students, I think, to find out and get a sense of, in addition to all the traditional sort of stats and things like that.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm going to let Deb had sent me a message that she wanted to say something, but also we have, in the interest of time, we have 5 minutes left. I feel like I should have made this an hour-and-a-half panel. So lesson learned. I am able to stay on a little while, but I don't want to make our panelists do that. I know that they're very busy. I'm going to let Deb speak, and then I just want to ask a couple of the questions that I'm seeing kind of trending down regarding specifics for the application process that I think will be quick thumbs up, thumbs down from the panel for a couple of them, and then maybe an answer from a few of you for those, just in the interest of time. And I just want to say thank you again to our panel, just in case all of you have to drop off or you drop out at 2 o'clock. We understand, we know, and I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for doing this and helping us as school counselors really knowledgeably field the questions we're getting from families, obviously, during this unprecedented time. As Tyler Tucky said, none of us have been through a pandemic before, so we're all kind of trying to band together and help each other. So I do appreciate that, and I'll give you the floor, Deb.
I just want to say, for juniors and seniors, because we're doing so much outreach through email, is make sure you tell them to get on our mailing lists, because we're going to be doing some outreach that's very regional in orientation, and we're going to send that from people who have added themselves to our mailing list. So get on our websites, get on our admissions website specifically, and make sure that your kids are on our mailing list so that we can share with them all the great virtual ways that they can get to know us. That's all I had to say.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's worth waiting for. Sorry, Jim. I'm so sorry. So, show of maybe thumbs up, thumbs down. So is anyone not test optional or flexible for the fall? If you are test optional, test flexible, please give me a thumbs up. Oh, nice, Mario, I like that. And then Jarrett and Tyler, if you could just speak to what your requirements are for this incoming junior class, given that they haven't been able to do testing, I'd appreciate it. or more so the question Zoom group chatters would appreciate it.
Yeah, so as of right now, we still require the standardized test. As time goes on, that who knows, that it's impossible to say like, well, this is definitely going to be the case. I would say that we probably will still continue to require it. But again, if it turns out that nobody can take the SAT, then how can we require something that that's not available?
Well, I'm thinking if SATs go online, I'm just going to put it out there because I know several counselors would put it out there. We have kids that do not have access to the internet, and that creates a huge equity issue.
Right.
From our perspective. And as you know, Jarrett, because you've been so wonderful and been to our school, it's very, very rural. And we have students that do not have and can't even, like, even if they get to a hot spot, it's iffy connection-wise. So I just will put that out of there on behalf of equity issues for our students.
Yeah.
Tyler?
Yeah, so as a proud member of the North Carolina state system, we are following the direction of the system, which is requiring test scores. So that is not a decision that we're able to make on our own. And this is so I work with our out-of-state population, and I have a strong affinity for. We do only enroll, we have a capacity at 18%. So the other students who are coming from North Carolina, all juniors took a standardized test as a part of their high school curriculum in the state of North Carolina, which is guiding a lot of the conversation system-wide. If anything changes, which I'm sure that my personal opinion is different and may not be relevant, but we would be sure to communicate that. And the leadership of the system is constantly evaluating.
Same.
So, I'm sorry, I'm seeing a few things. So there's a question about fee waivers, because as you all know, the status for our students is changing constantly. And so for most of you, I think you probably accept the Common App fee waiver, but there's a question about if we are online in the fall as school counselors, and the NAC Act fee waiver requires signatures. So sometimes that's something we have to go to if something's already been submitted and there's been a change in a family's status. We move to the NAC Act fee waiver. And their question is about that one requires student and counselor signature, which is difficult to get in an online environment. So the question is, how would you handle that?
I think in our case, we would review it, and the nice thing for admitted students is we have their financial information through the FAFSA, and that would be the determining factor anyway. Is if it's a family making $400,000, no, we're not granting that fee waiver. And before you say that's ridiculous, no, we get those requests. But if it's a family of true need, then yes, we're going to be willing to work with them and grant a fee waiver where possible.
So for this fall application process, just to be clear, Jim, I think what we're saying is that could change, the status could change after a kid is submitted. So do you think it would be better just to, even though we have the NAC Act fee waiver, to send that form attached? It may not have the student's signature, but attached directly from the counselor to your office?
Sure, that would be helpful. The other thing I would say is, and I'm sure most financial aid offices are doing something similar to what we're doing, that we have a form for COVID specific appeals that we're asked. It's an online form that we're asking families to fill out if they've had a change in financial situation, so that we can evaluate it. We may ask for some documentation just so we know what the nature of the change is. It is a temporary change? Is it a permanent change? Is it real salary? Is it a reduction in salary? So everything's going to be individualized, but I think most of us have processes in place to address, and again, the key being, to Tyler's point, flexibility.
I think that, to your question, Sharon, we will be very flexible in making sure that if signatures cannot be attained, it's fairly easy, a conversation with the counselor, and we can confirm the information. That shouldn't be a big issue.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mario.
Yeah,
Tyler and Jarrett, similar. Sorry, Deb, go ahead.
Oh, no, and I would just say we will accept whatever sort of form you give us. About 25% of our applications come in with fee waivers, and we've not declined any of them, so.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so I have a question about, and I think this is really relevant, and I'm sorry to those that are staying on, and if I don't get your question, because I do appreciate all of you that on our panel. Again, if you need to drop off, please do. But one of the questions is about EA and ED deadlines, given that students haven't been able to visit campuses, but also given that students are having to fit more testing in the fall. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, our state test, unlike North Carolina, for juniors did not get to occur due to the coronavirus. So our students have no starting point for testing, but they also haven't been able to visit schools. So is there any talk for your institutions moving deadlines back a bit, is the question.
I was going to say we haven't really talked about it yet, but that, I mean, that's certainly a valid point. And when I say we haven't really talked about it, we haven't as a staff. I'm sure that people have been talking about it at a certain level, but for us, day to day, we've been just trying to deal with what's right in front of us. But yeah, that's definitely going to be something that's that we're going to have to consider because people don't have access to the things that they normally have access to. That may be in all of our best interest to move those deadlines, but we haven't had any sort of official discussion about that yet.
I think the conversations that we're having is always balancing what's the best decision we can make for students, and how does that look in terms of reality, and how can we bring back some sense of normalcy. So for us, our conversation around the deadlines has really talked about, while we're going to continue to monitor the situation, would keeping a November 1st early action deadline provide a sense of normalcy? And we're constantly asking our counselor advisory board if they agree with the current thought process of the office. So it's something that we're looking at, but trying to balance, like, how much, what's the difference between flexibility and normalcy, and where can we fit in the middle?
For us, I think that we don't have early action. We only have early decision, but we do have 2 rounds, early decision 1 and 2. The first round, it's mid-November, and then the second round, it's early January. So I think that we have plenty of flexibility to catch those stragglers, so to speak, through the ED2 deadline. But if they still want to be within that ED program. So I think it's, we would monitor again the situation, like has been said before, and we'll make adjustments, and we will communicate with everyone within our pool. So that it's not like we are going to make decisions without communicating to anyone. So that shouldn't be a big issue.
Great, thanks, Mariam. Jim?
The big change with Salve is because we require nursing applicants to apply under the Early Action 1 deadline, we're going to lift that restriction and allow nursing students to apply under EA1 or EA2, which would give them until early January to apply.
Great, thank you. All right, go ahead, Deb. No, go ahead, Deb.
Oh, thank you. We have 2 staff retreats coming up in the next couple of weeks, and so I think this is a discussion that we will have during those retreats.
So what you're saying is, Sharon, we should have another panel in August.
Maybe.
And I apologize to Alexandria, who was the one that posed a question, because about fee waivers, and I quickly read it and then in my head made it into fee waivers for applications, but she's asking, are your institutions, so I'm just going to read it, which I should have done in the first place, so I apologize, Alexandra. Are your institutions accepting the NACAC enrollment deposit fee waiver without the student and counselor signature? And is the impact of COVID on annual family income going to be considered in regards to income eligibility guidelines for that waiver?
I'm going to answer this really quick because Yale does not have an enrollment deposit, so we don't need the waiver.
Thanks, Deb. That was easy.
Yes and yes for Salve.
Okay.
Yeah, I just like admission is such a high physical and in-person touch point profession. And so I would say if you have a fee waiver, just reach out to our office and give us a call, send us an email. We want to hear from the student and we'll work with the student. So the answer is yes, but also just talk to us. And sometimes you may not always need the waiver if you just have a conversation first.
Yeah, it's the same with us. We just, it's always based on their, their EFC and all that anyway. So, even before the NACAC form, without the NACAC form. So it's a, case by case basis. Like
Right. So we should contact you if that EFC could have been impacted by parents losing jobs. So the answer is call admissions if you're a counselor, and we can't get those signatures, have a conversation because you are going to sort of do a case by case basis on that. Does that sound about fair, Mario?
Yeah, it's the same here. So
okay, all right. So thank you. I'm going to do just 2 more questions because I know we all it's Friday. It's Friday. So are you getting a lot of requests to give more financial aid for the incoming class even though they have already received their packages? And how should a student go about getting more money to enter your institution if they have had a financial hardship within the family, which I think is going to be a similar answer, but a little bit different to the enrollment deposit question?
Yeah, we've always told students, if you have any significant changes in your finances in your family between the time that we package you and during the summer, or during that time, please contact the financial aid office. Regardless of COVID-19. I mean, of course, we're probably going to see more of those cases with COVID-19, but honestly, that's something that we've done, throughout, over the years. If you have some issues, a major change in your finances, contact the financial aid department, and they may be able to adjust the package to make it work.
We've seen a slight increase on what we call appeals, but it hasn't been that drastic from one year to the next. But we typically will handle that through the proper process, and whether it's an appeal related to their scholarship or need-based aid, certainly it's centralized into one particular process. So it will be handled as it has been handled in the past. And those special circumstances had been addressed in the past and will continue to be addressed moving forward.
I think one thing to make your families aware of is that the type of resource that might be allocated to them, if it's an appeal directly related to change in financial status due to COVID, might be a little bit different than what would be a traditional appeal. So, for example, if it looks like it's a temporary employment situation, they may get a temporary bump that's designed to be a 1-year bump, as opposed to a 4-year bump, because it's assuming that the family's employment status, when this all moves on, will go back to normal. And then if there is a case where a student receives that type of award, I would just always remind students and families that financial aid offices and financial aid counselors, it's not a one and done thing. When they're current students, they're going to have opportunities to have the conversation. They have to reapply for financial aid every year. So the financial aid counselor is going to work with the family based on the needs from year to year to address the current situation for a family. So absolutely, these conversations are very important, and everybody's staffs want to have these conversations. We're not shying away from them.
All right. Anybody else wanted to add? Just give me a wave. So, Okay, I lied. So maybe I'm going to ask 2 more questions because they're both really good questions and I can't choose which ones. So if you're willing to stick with me, panel, thank you. So I know that the investment in mental health resources, and this isn't exactly admissions, but it's your knowledge of your campus, and you may or may not be able to answer this, but I know that the investment in mental health resources has been growing in higher education. Is this increasing or changing in the current environment? And the person writing, Jason, said so many of our students are so anxious, and I know that in conversations we've had at NACAC meetings, this has been a topic of conversation, that there is such an increase in mental health issues for our students for whatever reason. Right now we're seeing a major increase. So I think it's, how are you addressing this in your current environments? Are you seeing an increase and upping your mental health resources on campus? And then with COVID, it's just going to make those anxiety issues even worse. So I'll leave you, you may or may not be able to answer that one, but I'll leave you to answer it if you can.
I mean, it seems like we've been sort of increasing that already, just you know, and sort of just the way we are, just as in like in the question, you know, so many of our students are you know, just more anxious in general, and we're, you know, and we're recognizing that more than we did in the past as well. So I can't say for sure whether, you know, because of COVID-19 will we increase our, you know, funding or things like that, you know, for mental health programs, but I can say that we will certainly, and have already, sort of increased our awareness, and how that will manifest itself, you know, remains to be seen. But yeah, that's certainly something that people are considering, not just the logistics of how to deal with this pandemic, but you know, where our students are going to be mentally, you know, when they do return to us.
Yeah, and I would say in addition to the mental health professional community that I think has been ramped up on every or most college and university campuses because of the type of students that we inherit now at 17 and 18, you know, I think we've all done a really good job, some better than others probably, in terms of what we provide students. You know, but I would also say that I believe in addition to that, the professional staff associated with student affairs and, you know, the people who connect with the residential colleges, residential life, dormitories, however you define it, wherever you are, you know, that staff is thinking an awful lot and has continued to think an awful lot about just well-being. You know, the big thing on our campus, and I don't know if everybody else sees this, and, you know, Sharon, you and I have kids of about that age, is the lack of sleep and, you know, the just not taking great care of yourself. And so I think that type of piece, in terms of I can do it all, I'm super person, and then getting so run down, you know, our residential college staff, residential life staff has been thinking a lot about community building and mindfulness and, you know, all kinds of different programs, not only through the mental health professional staff that's on our campus, but other sort of pockets of people who connect regularly with students, who can serve as communities and outreach and connection with students, so that first we can see if they're struggling and then refer them to the right people, and that they have some semblance of awareness and possible training, probably not training like at the mental health stage, but just in terms of making sure that we connect them with the right next steps. And I think that's something that all campuses are becoming better at, including professors, including people, because there's lots of people who touch the students that you interact with and see them at their best and their worst and everything in between. And so I think as an entire community, we're sort of thinking more about, you know, how do we help our kids be more mindful about the physical decisions and mental actions and things that they're doing throughout their 4 years on our campuses.
Great, thanks, Deb. That's right. It's not just the mental health office. It's everyone, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing. We coming out of the decision to go virtually in the spring, we decided to enhance the offerings in terms of mentorship, and there was a program that was created. It's called Nest, and a group of individuals from coaches to campus police to administrators, faculty, that are engaging with students because of the complexity that comes with being totally virtual. So I think it has paid dividends in terms of making sure that there is a true connection for the students to the campus and the community. And like I'm involved with some students from Puerto Rico, and that's one of the reasons is because I recruit there. It's one of my territories, so I think it makes it a lot easier to keep those connections throughout. And it's just trying to address some of their feelings and concerns currently, and trying to make sure that they feel that they have, and the parents, I make myself available to the parents, they feel like they have a true connection to the institution, and it has paid dividends. And we feel really good about it, and that will continue throughout the summer, and then certainly moving forward for years to come. So yeah, it has allowed us to create a space where students are able to meet some of those needs beyond your typical clinical setting.
Good point. Tyler?
I was only going to add that I echo everything as per usual, but I've been encouraged by the elevation of both counseling services as well as well-being promotion in university-wide communications. So due to COVID-19, our university is sharing a lot more resources with both faculty, staff, as well as students. So I got my alert that I was looking at my computer screen for more than an hour, so I should divert my eyes away and say this as I'm slouching in my chair. So
now we're all sitting up straighter and we're all looking away from the screen.
So I'm grateful for universities recognizing that students, as well as faculty and staff, are going through life differently, and that they're still taking into account both well-being as well as the counseling services that have remained open throughout all of this.
True. Okay, anybody else have anything they wanted to add? Last question. As my therapy coworker has stopped by. The last question is about, and it's very relevant, I think, to everybody, which is transcripts, and how you're going to be looking at the transcripts, and maybe recommendations for us about how best to communicate to you about what happened during the COVID to impact our grading, because of course that has happened across the board and in different ways at every single school, high school that has closed down in the United States, which is pretty much everybody. So if you could just address how you would like to see that, what you would like to see, and how you're going to deal with that in the fall as you review applications. Go ahead, Deb.
So, you know, we're going to take, I think one of my colleagues said, we're going to take you where you are, you know, and almost, I would say a vast majority of high schools are doing pass fail grades. And so that's what we're going to see if you're, you know, a first-year student or a senior next year. And so we're going to not worry about that. We're going to take what we get, and you know, we will lean on, you know, we require teacher recommendations. We'll be leaning on those to get a sense of, you know, a student's ability in the classroom, and less so about, you know, that particular grade that doesn't exist. You know, every single Yaley this spring is getting a pass or fail either. They're not getting grades. I think what would be really helpful, if you have any sort of hybrid option at your respective schools that kids could get grades or they could get pass and fail or pass fail, that we would want to know that. And then if a and also to define, what does pass mean? Does pass mean C- to A? Does it mean D to A? You know, just to sort of give us a sense of what is pass fail defined at your respective school. And then if there's any sort of hybrid grading at all, that we would, on your high school profile, in your counselor letters, that you would let us know exactly what that is.
Yeah, I would add to what Deb is saying, and I think that the nice thing about this sort of technology age we live in is for a lot of you're using Naviance or some other similar system, or I can't even pronounce it, SCORE, however it's pronounced. But think about, you know, your usage of your counselor form in those settings, or in the Common App counselor form. If you could just have a quick paragraph that outlines how you approach grading this year and include it on that form and just make it for everybody, or a supplement to your, you know, don't rewrite your school profile, but have a supplement page to your school profile, just so we know what we're looking at. You know, it's at least, you know, for a lot of small liberal arts colleges, for private institutions, it's usually a holistic review anyway. And so we're looking at all those individual details. And so we're used to that. And what we're looking at it for is context. And so any context that you can provide, whether it's in a formulaic way or an individualized way, an individual counselor recommendations or teacher recommendations, we're going to take the information we have and going to make the best informed decision that we can with the information. I was just joking with my wife before I got on here, like, I don't even know what the heck is going on with my middle schooler and his grades, because nothing's been entered this quarter. I'm guessing that maybe at the end of it, they're just going to take the average of the 4 3 quarters and say, that's your grade for this quarter. Who knows what's going on? So, you know, I think we're all just going to navigate this together and do the best we can. But at the end of the day, just know that admissions is not about exclusion. Most admissions people are in this looking for a reason to admit, not to deny. And so as long as there's some information that we have that offers us context, we're going to use that to the best of our ability to find a way to admit a student.
Great. I'm just going to jump in here, and then Tyler, you can go. I think that one thing I want to reiterate that Jim said and Deb said, and I'm sure Tyler and Jarrett would agree with, and Mario, but he had to leave for a call. So I want to thank Mario for being here, even though he's no longer still here, is that it's going to be really important that we have a frank conversation with our teachers as school counselors, somehow get the information out that their letters are becoming even more crucial and valuable for this class of, as Deb would put it, was it 2025? Oh, it's old. So I think that that's going to be really important that we talk to our administrators to say, we're going to need some airtime, however that can happen pretty early on with our teachers, to say, the more detail you can give, the better you are helping our students, because right now there's less data for colleges to really look at that's true data. So I just wanted to pop in there and say, you know, as school counselors, sometimes we have to step up in our buildings to say, you know, those of you who have those form letters on your computer, knock it off. Make them personalized to the student.
I echo what Jim was saying, and I heard this on another webinar this week, so I am sharing it to as many as I can, but I agree, do not rewrite your school profile unless your plans were already to rewrite it. Adding a cover page that you can add that broke down how your school handled COVID-19 would be the most help to all of us. And I echo that statement to students. If students had an idea of what college essay they were going to write, don't shift that because of COVID. Common App is looking to add a section and a question just for how COVID affected a student. So still use that space to tell us more about who they are as a person. And I echo that sentiment for the high school side as well. And like we are all living through this together. So I'm not going to forget what these weeks of my life looked like. None of our admission counselors who, when we're going through our review process, are going to forget what this looked like. So know that I'm trying to mitigate as many fears that I know that our juniors and sophomores and freshmen have about this, but this isn't going to go away quickly, and it's not going to go away from our brains and our hearts anytime soon either.
True.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like we all are going through this together, and it is uncertain for all of us. And so they're not going to have to convince us how difficult this time was, or how weird it was to not go to school or anything like that. I know they want to talk about it. I don't want to stop them from expressing themselves, but they don't need to tell us all that. We know, and we hear them, we see it every day. So yeah, as long as, but yeah, the more context we have in general, the better, definitely. Even coming from a big school where, we're more numbers driven, we can't lean on those numbers like we may have been in the past. And we've actually been working on that over the past few years, being more, having more of a holistic review process. And that's been a learning process for all of us in our admissions office. So we're definitely gonna have to lean on that, that much more this year, because there's just gonna be fewer people with testing and fewer people with grades and fewer grades and all those kinds of things. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun year, I think.
That's for sure. It's going to be a nice roller coaster ride. There's ups, there's downs. So I just want to say thank you so much to our panel today for spending an extra half hour, and those of you who are on the call and able, as school counselors, I know, especially because it's Friday, spending that extra time. I appreciate it. I am looking to work with our high school team. We do have representatives on our board that are our high school liaisons, and we're working to put together a panel of admissions counselors for school counselors to use. I'm thinking a junior one and a senior one in the evening, sort of a virtual panel for your parents and students. That has been a request that has come in, so we're looking into doing that, and our wonderful panel that's here today has already said we'd be more than happy to help out if they can fit it into their schedules. So look for more information coming in about that, so that the parents can ask questions and the kids can ask questions similar to our format and hear a little bit about what's going on. So we'll look to have that happening, but I hope everyone stays safe, stays healthy, stays appropriately socially distanced, and wears the masks, especially if you're Connecticut. And I wish you the best this summer, and reach out. I think we're all in this together. So I think what you're hearing from the admissions side is, if you have a question, we're here. We may be in our kitchen, we may be in our basement, we may be in our rooms, but we're all still here, and we're trying to do what's best for our students each and every day. From both sides of the desk. So with that being said, thank you so much. Everyone go and have a very happy Friday, happy hour. Okay. Bye guys, thank you so much.